Well, HBO's final season of Game of Thrones is expected to reach record-breaking ratings, and thousands of companies are looking to cash in on that global phenomenon. From makeup lines, new sneakers, Super Bowl ads, the cross-branding is pretty unavoidable. Brand expert at The Monkeys, David Toussaint, joins me now. Dave, thanks very much for being with me.
No worries, mate.
Now, first things first, we're going to talk about this Bud Light commercial, which is, was out with the Super Bowl. Actually, let's take a look at that so that our viewers can get up to speed.
All right, let's tap this keg. Giddy up, Peanut!
Look, I like it a lot, Dave. I really do, but I don't really get it. Can you help me understand why this Bud Light ad was such a big one?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's probably good to start with why people are going after Game of Thrones to begin with. And I think, in short, people really hate ads most of the time, nearly all the time. So when something's really big and really popular, people create characters or try to integrate their brands to kind of jump on that big wave. So a couple of years ago, Budweiser created a character called the Bud Light Knight, kind of in honor of Game of Thrones, and he stars in all of their ads now, and they've built this whole world around it. So for the Super Bowl this year, they got paid the ultimate kind of respect, because Game of Thrones actually said, what if we do this crossover and we bring the real Knight from Game of Thrones into your kind of honorary Game of Thrones Knight and sort of get them to come together for something. And that was the result of it. So it was actually a really big success. They ran it in the Super Bowl. They kind of put all their marketing dollars into that really big event, banking on Game of Thrones. But also Game of Thrones did the same thing. They thought, it's kind of funny to go back and work with this Bud Light Knight. Yeah,
well, he's, the mountain there reminding people of one of the most horrifying scenes in the entire show. And it's come off as a comedy. I wouldn't expect them to be able to pull that off.
Yeah, it's interesting with the way they've done it, because it's kind of two ads in one. It's a really Budweiser ad at the beginning, Bud Light ad, and then it just flips into the Game of Thrones thing. I guess that's why it's kind of funny.
Absolutely. Well, okay, that one was a bit of a success. I get it now. Now, with regard to Johnny Walker, speaking of alcohol, now they've done a crossover as well. Can we take a look at that one?
From deep in the north, far beyond the wall, the howl of the frozen wind brings word of something new. A whiskey from the land of always winter, for those who face the oncoming storm and never stop walking. Winter is here. White Walker by Johnny Walker.
Okay, a much more serious take on things, it would seem there. And I understand that Johnny Walker's been talking about doing this for quite some time.
Yeah, and I mean, Johnny Walker has the same kind of brand line that it keeps coming back to, which is keep walking. So walking, walking, walking. I think it's a pretty easy, one of those moments where they were like, there are these characters on a really popular program that are walking.
They do a lot of walking.
And they keep walking. They've been walking for 7 seasons. If you're not a fan of the show, I'm sorry, you won't really care about any of this at all.
Well,
but a group of people have been walking from here to here for 7 seasons, so that's why I think it's one of those, it just works.
So it's just that basic. We're just going to line up with this show we know everybody likes, and we're going to do it at just this base level.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's got to be simple. It's got to be on brand for people to understand it. It wouldn't make any sense if it was Qantas doing something like keep flying. Those things don't do it. So again, I mean, sometimes these things don't need to be too complicated, and people, again, from that flicking around on TV or on their phone, just get that little moment of, oh yeah, I get it. Yeah. I might remember it more than I would if it was something else.
True. Uncomplicated ad then, if I can say that word correctly. Does it have an uncomplicated response? Do I just want to pick up a Johnny Walker? Do you think it just hits me right there?
I mean, going a little bit deeper into this, which you don't really need to, I guess, because mostly it's about thinking about the brand and, being a bit more relevant for that moment. But, I mean, people play Game of Thrones drinking games all the time. There's all these, if someone dies, do a shot. When somebody says, nothing Jon Snow, I don't know, drink a bottle. So a few alcohols playing in this space, knowing that, again, it's an occasion sometimes. Groups of people are coming together to watch Game of Thrones and with their friends. So they're trying to get into that alcohol occasion.
Right, on a Monday night. Okay, I believe you. I'm not doubting it. Now we've got one more to look at here, which is Oreo getting in on the action as well. Their take on the famous series. Kind of interested to see this one. I mean, Dave, how long is that boardroom meeting where they think, let's just do it, let's do it with Oreos?
Yeah, so I mean, this one goes a little bit the other way. So Oreos and Game of Thrones, well, I don't really get it like White Walker and Johnny Walker, but Oreos do cultural marketing, I guess. They find big things that are happening and they just jump on it, and they consistently do that. So people now expect them to do stuff within that area. So for example, there was an eclipse in the UK and they did a whole eclipse Oreo, so it's more kind of the other way. But what I really liked about this one was it is pretty simple. It's not taking itself too seriously, and the best YouTube comment that I read was, milk is coming, So, I mean, you're able to, if you're a fan of this, if you love Game of Thrones, you enjoy the ad for what it is and respect that it's getting involved.
It just seems that there's no limit to the kinds of companies that can get on board this gravy train.
Yeah.
It's amazing stuff. Now, I understand along with ads, there's also like hard actual products that are being released on the back of this Game of Thrones phenomenon. I understand that there's stuff like, Adidas's new sneakers, other stuff like that. Is the equation really simple that everybody is focused on this one thing? If we get on board that even a little way, we'll get more sales and everyone will be very happy.
Yeah, I mean, again, people have so many things that they care about a lot more than advertising in the world. Okay. So everyone's kind of sitting there planning out their little way to get noticed a bit more. And yes, I think in a really simple way, you go, Game of Thrones is big, what's our Game of Thrones thing? Just like a lot of brands do for, Mother's Day, or, brands that jump on causes and things like that. But it has to fit in a way, like the White Walker shoe from Adidas, again, it's walking in its feet and they're white shoes. So you really get that simple thing, but it doesn't work for every brand. There could be a very, very uncool brand. Like, imagine, one of the politicians jumping on Game of Thrones now for the election. You'll read straight through that and you'll feel like it's really forced. But it's definitely something that a lot of brands are trying.
Do you think that it can ever be done incorrectly? Can a brand stuff this up?
Yeah, I think we're going to see some brands stuff it up over the weekend, definitely. I think that'll be a really nice wrap up after this, which is the ones that got it wrong a little bit. And that'll be the guys that thought about it late, the kind of cheap social post which has been put together without any thought. I mean, you saw that was a Super Bowl ad with real Game of Thrones characters. That's great. Yeah. But a little brand putting a little Game of Thrones thing hidden in the background is going to come across a little bit cheap.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about some of the clangers from you when we talk to you next time.
Yeah.
David Toussaint, brand communications expert at The Monkeys. Great stuff, loved it. Thank you very much.
Cheers.